So if you know a few things about fountain pens, you should easily recognize this as a Lamy Safari. But if you know a lot about fountain pens, you should be able to spot that this clip is wrong. And the reason being is that it is a cheap Chinese knockoff. The other thing that will probably alert you that it is a Chinese knockoff is that instead of saying Lamy, it says Jinhao right here. Because this is not a Lamy Safari, it is a Jinhao 599 knockoff, and the price that you pay for it is rather fitting that it's a cheap Chinese knockoff. I paid about $1.70 for this pen, and I would urge you not to pay any more than that if you're looking at buying this pen. I'll get into the reasons why later on, but I would like to say that this does cost a lot less than your regular Lamy Safari. A regular Lamy Safari in Australia would go for about $50. In the US, I believe they're about $38. Those are excellent pens. This pen, no. Lamys, they will blow your socks off. This one falls flat on its ass for reasons I will get to in a minute. But before I start the video, on a bit of a tangent, this isn't part of the way I envisioned this video, but this pen lived up to its sort of cheap and cheerful name, because when I was preparing to do this video, when I was filling it up, the plunger in the converter, it must have detached from the threads that push the plunger up and down, and, well, it speaks for itself. The converter's broken, and it's only broken after about three months of use. So, living up to its cheap and cheerful name, these Chinese pens, they really are shoddily made, aren't they?
Oh, boo-hoo! Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
This is serious.
I know.
Well, that's a shame. I'll have to buy another one. It's probably cheaper to buy another whole pen than it is to buy a whole new converter set of converters. Anyway, let's get into the video. So let's get into some of the body specs. So the length of this pen, capped, will be 13.8 centimeters, uncapped it will be 12.9, and posted it will be 16 centimeters. So it's pretty much the same dimensions as your standard Lamy Safari, because unsurprisingly this is a knockoff, and they pretty much copy this one-to-one. It is also the same weight as the Lamy Safari. They both weigh 17 grams. Now, I'd like to mention that the Lamy Safari uses ABS plastic for its body and cap, and ABS is a really, really durable plastic. When I had a Lamy Safari for about 3 or 4 months, that was a really, really durable pen. It was my everyday carry pen. Put it in my pocket, put it in my bag. That thing would live up to anything, didn't really get scratched, and that thing just kept soldering on. It was pretty much indestructible for being a plastic pen. This, however, yes, it weighs the exact same, but this is in no way going to be ABS plastic. This pen, instantly when you pick it up, feels very, very cheap, and in a lot of ways it does not feel durable. For example, the threads that I like to show, the threads, they do feel very, very weak. I bought this in a 2-pack, so I got 2 Jinhao 599s, and within a week I had sat on this pen, and these had cracked. So I've done the same thing on my Lamy Safari, and that easily withheld it. So this pen, yes, it weighs the same, but it feels a lot more brittle, and for $2 you can sort of get where I'm coming from. I wouldn't expect anything more from a $2 pen. You know, you break it, you buy another one. One thing I like to say is, and this is a very, very, very debated issue, the actual grip of this pen. It uses a sort of triangular grip that the Lamy Safari uses, and you either hate it or you love it. It's like Marmite or Vegemite or Bovril or whatever you want to get at. You either love it or you hate it. Me, I'm not the biggest fan of it. Yes, I can use it, but I'd much rather a cylindrical grip. That's why I don't use the Lamy Safari anymore, and pretty much why I only use this one if I ever feel like using a pen with a triangular grip. That being said, I don't use this often. I'm just not a big fan of it, and if anyone else ever wants to use my fountain pen, this is typically the one I will give them. If you do love this grip, it's exactly like the Lamy Safari, and you can probably use this pen without any trouble. One last thing that I'd like to point out is that, like the Lamy Safari, there are holes here in the body, so you can't make this pen an eyedropper pen. Yes, it is an all-plastic pen, saying that is perfect for being made an eyedropper, but annoyingly, if you put ink in here, it would just run out. Here, and also the end. This is breathable, there's holes in it. What a shame, huh? Okay, let's talk about the nib. So, unlike the Lamy Safari, this has a more traditional nib. This nib, unlike the Lamy Safari, does not curve over the feed, unlike a Lamy Safari, and because of that, it is a lot more flexible than a Lamy nib. Anyone that has used a Lamy nib will know that they are one of the hardest things in the world. And hard, stiff, whatever you wanna call it. However, this nib here is incredibly flexible. When you press down on the paper, this nib will flex quite a bit. I do like a flexi pen. The issue with that is you need a feed that will keep up when the tines spread, and the issue is this pen does not have a feed that will keep up with that. When you do push down and the tines spread apart, this pen will generally railroad, and that's pretty much when the ink breaks away and runs down each side of the tines, and you pretty much get a railroading effect. And I find that incredibly annoying, and it makes your writing almost unlegible depending on how big your writing is. That also being said, this is a fine nib, and fine nibs are known for being scratchy, but this is a very, very scratchy nib, especially when doing side strokes. I don't know if it's the way that they ground the nib. I believe there's a bit of baby's bottom on this nib, but when I do side strokes, this nib will usually grab into the paper. If I'm using lower quality paper, it will grab into the paper and tear the paper, which I find pretty annoying, because I like my paper to stay intact when writing on it. Another thing that I want to say about this nib is that if you try and counteract the dryness of the nib, of the feed, by pretty much flooding it with ink, it will solve it when doing railroading, but it will also leak ink all over the joint, and you'll get ink all over your work. So I advise you not to do that. I've destroyed quite a lot of work just by over priming the feed, over flooding it with ink, and the ink just squirts everywhere. As well as that, if you leave it be, this pen will dry start almost every time if you leave the pen for more than a day. And if you have several pens, you're going to be dry starting quite a lot, because if you use a lot of your pens, sort of rotate them around, you're going to get a dry start from this pen quite a lot. So I'm not a big fan of this nib in general. A lot of these Chinese fine nibs are usually medium-ish sort of nibs. This one is more of a fine nib, and it's a really, really bad fine nib. Okay, so what do I like about this pen? Not much. Not much. So, pros, it lets you try out a iconic Lamy Safari for about $2. The price is very good on this pen. $1.70 I paid for this one. So I wasn't all that mad about it breaking or the nib being not that good because I've only lost about $1. You pay more for Macca's fries, so I'm not all that mad about that. The price is very good, and that's about it. What do I not like about this pen? I'll keep this brief and simple. The nib, I don't like how it's scratching. It's just a deal breaker. It tears up paper on the side strokes. The feed, I don't like the feed. It's very, very dry, and this pen, when it flexes, will railroad. Reliability, as you've seen, the plunger and the converter, that's broken. That's absolutely broken. If I feel like it, I might just get another pen. For me, the grip, yeah, the grip's not amazing, but hey, as I said before, it's like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. And finally, it feels very, very weak. I've already had one of these, that broke. It broke at the threads. This is my second one, and the second one's now broken.